Hey everyone, and welcome back to the 7th, I believe, Coalition Revisited review thingy. I always forget what it's called. Landjut. Seventh thing, hang on, how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, including mixed. So we're more or less at a half point, arguably, or we're like right in the middle if we count the mixed decks. If not, we're just above the half point. What did we do so far? We did Scandi, right? We did Scandi, USA, and NORAD in one. Dutch, German, Eastern Bloc, Red Dragons on town. So what do we have left? We have Baltic Front, Landjut, which is what we're doing today. Blue Dragons, Commonwealth, and Eurocore. And then the mixed decks. I'm not sure if I'll cover these. Maybe I'll do them at the end. Maybe just a short video where I showcase both, but I'm not sure if it's really necessary. Anyways, back to Landjut. It is honestly, Landjut is probably the most straightforward coalition there is, I'd say. There's not really a whole lot of different things you can do. What it can do, it does pretty well. It's a bit like Scandi that has access to a bit heavier tanks, but not quite the same choice when it comes to infantry. But let's go through it. CVs. Honestly, it's like not. I mean, it's mostly German. I think you'd probably want the infantry CV in the Lynx being a very good helicopter if you want your infantry in a helicopter. Unfortunately, of course, not a rocket pod, but it's a fast, it's small, it has 6 HP. When it comes to the speed, that's good enough. Centurion, if you want the cheap tank CV, it has 2 top armor. However, it is also very, very slow. I'd say it's in a 1 versus 1, you'd probably prefer this. I think in team games, it's probably safer to either go with the Leopard, simply for the speed, even if you lose a bit of front armor and side armor, but I think the speed is definitely worth it, or just straight up go for the Leopard too. Centurion I'd only take in 1 versus 1s due to it just simply being cheaper. Also has a Browning instead of the MJ3, which helps against helicopters, but I think speed, like once you're at a 2 armor top armor threshold, I think speed gains a bit more value. Other than that, it's nothing really out of the ordinary. And it should be noted that the Danish infantry CV, with the exception of the Jupiter, only gets tracked ground transports. Infantry. So let's take a look at the Danish thing. With the exception of FKP and the reservists, you only get tracked infantry. And the infantry itself is basically top notch. You don't really get any high-end anti-tank weaponry. The best thing you get is the Kalgusov M3 on the Fist Squads and Livgard 95, which is a very solid anti-tank weapon, but it obviously doesn't pack the punch that like the Panzerfaust 3 does on the Fallschirmjäger 90 and Panzergrenz 90. But we'll see it in the other tabs. Going moto isn't really something that you want to do with Landjut. It's usually good to have like at least one kind of motorized unit in your deck most of the times. If you want that, the only option in the infantry tab is really just Fallschirmjäger 90, which isn't it may sound like it. I'm not saying like Fallschirmjäger 90. It's just that they're good. They're very good. But it's really the only choice. FKP just for the same price, ignoring the transports, which are both just garbage. Have a better MG, but have a significantly worse anti-tank weapon for most scenarios. And also they don't have the fucking G11 space crowd rifle, so yeah. So yeah, that's quite annoying. And of course, like I said, the wheel support units are also not quite there. But they have excellent tracked units. Dragoner in the 5-pointer with 2 front armor, 2 side armor, fast enough. It's not like, 70k mage would be very fast, but it's pretty rare on 5-point transports, I'd say. Especially when they have 2 armor or more. but also a Browning, so it's very good 5-point transport. And the infantry itself is also very good. Battle rifle, MG3. Of course, you don't have the best anti-tank weaponry, but for 10 points, when you already get a battle rifle and an MG3 on top of having a very good 5-point transport, what more can you ask for? So that is one of the best spam infantry that you can get. I think the only thing that I'd consider better is probably a carry 90 in the BTR 50, because the infantry itself is better. The transport is slower, but the infantry itself is just better. There are of course cases where you'd maybe prefer riflemen in their transport, because there may be certain scenarios or certain setups or whatever where you would prefer the 3 armor on the transport over the infantry having an MG3. But I think in general, the Dragoner in their respective 5-pointer, which is a prototype by the way, easily one of the best options in the game. You have Fliegerfaust too, which they're not a must-have, but especially in a 1 versus 1, they can be very, very useful. But as always, manpads are also just very hard to fit in most decks. Especially since most of the time you also want 80 GM squads, and it's already 2 out of your 5 squad slots, assuming you're playing a mixed deck. But if you can fit it in, they will certainly be very useful. I'd suggest doing it in the Fox. In team games, again, it's not as big of an issue, but in 1 versus 1, it can be useful. Landjut, no, I tried using them because they're effectively 15 points wheeled MG3s. And the MG3 has the same stats as it has on line infantry. Same range, same accuracy. But the other issue is just that transport has no armor and most importantly no weaponry to support with. So I don't think they're bad, but they don't fit a traditional reservist role. They're not really there just to play meat shields, but they can actually just also dish out a bit of damage. But I think in hindsight, you're probably still better off just spamming Dragoner. Fist squads, they're just not worth it. If you want to spam fist squads, you can go with a Deckungsgruppe and a Mother 1, but even that is not great, because cheap IFV spam only really works well if the infantry it comes with has sufficient HP. Deckungsgruppe with only 5 HP dies very quickly, and that makes making use of the Mother 1 quite hard. There's no reason really to use Jäger since you have Dragoner really. Livgarden, very, very good shock infantry. Have access to the same 5-point transport. I like to run at least 1 squad of Livgarden just because it's shock, and which gives me, the ability to kind of spam them as well, especially for town fights. That can be very useful for CQC. And of course, if you want your infantry to be a bit more self-sufficient, the Carl Gustav M2 significantly helps against stuff like IFVs or side-shooting tanks. In the same vein, 5-point upgrade to Livgarden 85 can definitely be worth it. You might think, oh, for 5 points, I only get 2 AP and a bit of range on the anti-tank weaponry. And that's literally it. I mean, it is, but those 175 meter range, that's a lot. Trust me. On most other units, the upgrade probably wouldn't be that great, but Livgarden for 20 points is already such a good deal that small upgrade still makes Livgarden 85 very, very usable. So yeah, at least 1 card of either I think you should have in the deck. Again, I prefer, or I started to prefer actually having the 85 version, but it's not really like a big deal if you use the base ones or something, or maybe even neither, and you have like a different setup with like 2, maybe even 3 cards of Dragoner, and then just Panzergrens 90 in the Mark 2 or something. Yeah. Again, Sea Stinger, but they don't get wheel transport, so I would use the Fliegerfaust. Milan 2. I don't think I need to say a whole lot about it. Kind of a must-have in 1 versus 1, like in my opinion. Certain playsets, certain people liked or don't really need it as much, I think. I personally still definitely like to have it. Depending on what you play, like you may want to only use Stinger 2 if you can't fit in both the Stinger, Fliegerfaust 2, which is the Stinger C. If you can't fit in both, you know, maybe you're the type of person who just uses Stinger and not use an anti-GM infantry at all. That's fine. I'm not here telling you how to build your deck, but Milan 2 is just a very, very solid ATGM infantry. Some people even like to spam base Milan in the 5-pointer. For 15 points, it's very cheap. You can spam them quite a lot. And, you know, 17 AP at that range, you know, sure, against like heavy tanks up front, not gonna do a whole lot of damage, but it's still gonna be quite annoying. And especially if your opponent uses a lot of IFVs or something, or maybe a bit of cheaper tanks, you know, that may come in handy. Don't underestimate them. Panzergrants, there's no reason to take Panzergrants at all, in my opinion. You might want to spam them with the Marder 1 maybe, but it's not very efficient. It's kind of on the expensive side, so you can't really spam them efficiently. It's not very effective, because having a Marder 1 here or there, Marder 1 for 15 points is, honestly, it is underpriced, but you'd never notice that because it doesn't come with the proper infantry. If it came with 10-point line infantry, let's say a Dragoner, it would be utterly broken, but it doesn't. Coming with 20 points Panzergrants or 10 points Deckungsgruppe is a significantly nerf to it that makes it's not bad at all. Like Panzergrants Marder 1 is a decent combo, but you just have better access to stuff here. So 35 points, you might as well spend the extra 5 points to actually get a very, very good anti-tank weapon, because at 20 points, having only 16 AP, it's not that great, honestly. So you might as well spend the 5 extra points to get, you know, your actual high-end anti-tank weaponry for the deck, in case you're not running Fallschirmjäger 90. But most of the time, you probably just want the Marder 2. It just destroys basically every other IFV in the game. That isn't something like a Bradley with a Tau 2 or like a BMP3. But even though against those, it'll win if you're close enough and they don't have the chance to fire off their IDGM. But it's of course expensive, so don't be too aggressive with them. 30 points, it's not cheap, or 55 for the whole package. But yeah, you probably, yeah, you heard a lot of this probably already in the Dutch-German coalition review. So I think I'm gonna not spend too much time on the German units. You know, Gepard line, Roland line, literally all of these units are very, very solid. And there's a case to be made to be using every single one of them. If you want the Roland 2, which is still very good, it's just a lot more affordable, and offers the same accuracy. All you're losing is range and the HE, which doesn't always matter, but can certainly do. A Roland 3 if you want something weird, but you lose the armor. Roland 3 if you want something that doesn't die to a sneeze or something. Literally all of the Gepards are fine. A Gepard 2 if you want the stingers and the very, very high accuracy. Gepard if you want the cheapest version of it, or Gepard 1 if you just want a middle ground, you know, with a stabilizer and more accuracy. I'm probably talking so fast that you have trouble understanding me. Yeah, it's just, they're all very solid. I'm not gonna spend too much time on this. All I'm saying is don't underestimate this little unit. Don't. Lars is not useful. Lars 2 is alright. Mars, it's if you can fit it in, it may be okay, but in team games it is. But yeah, Mortar, this is garbage. The 50-point M109s, they are okay. If you're the type of person who likes like get 3 or 4 of them, and they can do a bit of suppressive fire. Hawks, the 60-point Hawks they're all right. You trade accuracy for a lot of range and the 9 HE, of course, which allows you to one-shot planes. You probably want to use the EOTS Hawk, most people, simply because you don't have to micro it, and also it means that due to not having to micro it, you can get your shot instantly out in case there's a seed plane, whereas with the normal radar missile, you would probably wait. Can be worth 15 points. I think in this case, it probably is. In the case of Scandinavia, for example, I'd still use the Noah because it has higher accuracy. But you don't have access to it, so... Personally, I still prefer using the Hawk at the Rolands, but if you're not the type of guy, or player I should say, who's very good at microing radar or just doesn't like it, this is maybe just a unit for you. Just keep in mind that Hawks are very immobile, and even especially if your opponent realizes that it may be like that it is a hawk, they might be trying to kill it with like their artillery, and that's very easily done. No top armor, only one front and side armor, and slow. So keeping it the road and or at the very least, and you should always do that, kind of reposition it after it fires. You don't have to drive it to the other side of the map, but you know it has a lot of range. It doesn't need to be so close to the front line, so you have a bit of a room to maneuver. Automatic. I don't think I have to say a lot about this, right? If you're not playing, like, this is one of the reasons to play Landjut. Like, this and the infantry that you get are the two main reasons. Like 90% of why you would play Landjut over either Scandi or Dutch-German coalition. Like, it's incredible against planes, it's like incredible against helicopters, incredible against IFVs, infantry, and can even be a threat to tanks if you use it properly or if your opponent doesn't expect it. Of course, it is also a seed magnet. You know, as soon as your opponent knows that you have an automatic, there's a good chance that one of the first buys they will, one of the first purchases will be a seed plane on their side. So just be very careful with this. But either if your opponent doesn't have seed, or you kill all of them, or whatever, if that thing can dish out so much damage. Same thing with the M109s. I'm still not a fan of M110s. I still don't think that they're a good buy, but Firestarter has a lot of success with it. Other people have a lot of success with it. If you like it, use it. I personally still think that it's not a very good unit. And then, you know, the very good German mortars. Tanks. Well, again, Leopard 2 line, they're average or good at best, I guess. You know, Leopard 205, like I said, it's just a super heavy, which is already good in and of itself, but compared to other super heavies, it's definitely on the lower end. 204 is alright, Leopard 2 and 201 are usable. Leopard 1 line, for the most part, is not that great. The German 104 is alright, because it has medium optics. The 183 DK, which is stat-wise literally a copy. I don't know if it realism-wise it is a 184 and they just renamed it. I don't know. Or maybe the 184 upgrade from the 183 they got is literally just the optics. Who knows? I don't. Other than that, Leopard 1 line is garbage. M48s are bad. Kyler is... Well, I started to use it kind of again in my Eurocore deck, so it's not really that bad. You have to be careful, especially if you're operating in forests. Enemy heavy tanks with 19 AP or more will just one-shot you. So that's the big issue of the tank. Can be alright for fire support. Centurions for the most part not that great, but the 25 point Centurion is pretty good. For 25 points you have good enough armor, you have 8 RPM. I think, hang on. I think yeah, this would be the closest comparison. My main thing compared to the T62D, which I personally am not a fan of, is the 8 RPM compared to the 6 RPM, which is huge. You still get a heavy MG, even with more accuracy, which is honestly not insignificant. You lose a bit of AP, which is kind of insignificant. The biggest difference is going to be the speed, which can be awkward through forests. And the 9 armor means that you will get one-shot by the Appellers, while the T62D would not, which is mainly against Baltic front, so that's something to watch out for. But the 8 RPM is a significant improvement if you compare these two tanks, and it actually makes it, in my opinion, a good enough fire support unit, whereas I'm not a fan of the T62D. Recon. Again, well, not again. Well, Denmark doesn't really add a whole lot of here in terms of numbers, but a few units that I add are pretty good. You have a 30 points Scout Defender with rocket pods, very good. Definitely use it if you can fit it in. Buy one for your flanks, buy one at the start, buy 2 at the start, you know, just for getting something cheap that also has good enough optics to just simply see stuff, you know. I don't know why I'm making arm movements, you can't see this shit, but it's just very, very good. Just like something like a Gasai Cannon. It's so useful to have. And so cheap. Jaeger 90. oops, very good. Definitely get that. Very good for flanks, very good for openers, very good for holding on their own. Very good, very nice that they have the Carl Gustav M3 again with the range, very useful, especially since there's a good chance that you might try to sneak those around. The AP, the range here is really more useful than the AP, so very good. Get a very good helicopter. Sadly, trash ground transport. Wildcat, very good Recon vehicle. It is literally a KFV-25 with stealth and optics, for all intents and purposes. Good autocannon, or attract Hachinana Shiki, whatever you want to call it. Very good, cheap, good for base defense, good for offense, good for fire support, you know, very all-around unit. M41DK used to have more, I think 2100 meter range or something. It used to be quite broken. It's still pretty good. But it's kind of overshadowed by the Wildcat nowadays. There's also the base M41A1, which is also very good. This thing here, however, has the issue of having very low availability, which is the main reason why I'm not a fan of it. You run out of them so quickly, and you kind of need 2 cars. If you're running only 1 car, I don't think you get a whole lot of mileage out of them. Like the unit itself is very good, but again, it's similarly to the AMX 1390 in Eurocore. Both are basically just simply fire support vehicles, but their main issue is just that they're card inefficient as fuck. Especially this one. The AMX 30 not so much, but that also has the issue of just being pretty bad against vehicles, which significantly reduces its survivability. But the M41, especially at only 10 points and 14 per card, is so card inefficient. I'm not trying to say that I can't recommend it, but I'm saying that it's just tough to fit in. Tiger, I don't think I need to say, it looks one of those, probably the only proper wheeled support unit for something like an opener, but it's gonna lose horribly to KTs, to BTR-ADAs, to Hachinanas and the like. So unless you're playing against something that is even worse at wheeled openers, there's probably no chance that you're gonna, not a good chance that you're gonna do a proper wheeled opener. I'm starting to use a bit more line Recon infantry. With a Jupiter, you get a very cheap option since you don't have access to shock infantry. I prefer them over the BGS, which are also pretty good, but I much prefer them because they have very good stealth, and BGS have only good stealth, and that's a huge difference. The speed is also nice to have, but most importantly, the stealth is a huge difference, which is why I'm not really using BGS. I mean, this is kind of useless. The Leopard 1 is alright, but it's also kind of tough to fit in. If you want to use 2 cards of Recon Infantry, Scout Defender, Tiger, that's already 4 slots. Vehicle, no, I went over these German, the Cannon, Jagdpanzer is alright, Marder VTS 1, Larota 2 is honestly not that bad. But I think the most notable unit here, I think if you want to use something here, it would be this. It is literally the Wildcat without the optics and stealth. Like, you also get more rounds, but everything else is literally the same. Speed, fuel, armor, amphibious speed, etc, etc. So, if you can't fit in the Wildcat in the Recon tab or something, you can just use this. Obviously, then it doesn't work quite as well as base defense because of the optics and other stuff, but it's still a very good unit. Cheap autocannon. Fennec Tau 2, a very good helicopter, honestly. Especially in 1 versus 1, depending on what deck you play against. These little things can catch your opponent really off guard. And at 55 points with Tau 2, it's not that expensive. Good accuracy, of course, with the Tau 2, and 6 HP, very small and very fast. It's actually quite survivable. So if you want an ATGM plane, you know, a helicopter, sorry, that's a very good choice. Fennec 20mm. It's a bit like the C9A, you know, once it aligned its guns, it has huge DPS. Massive rate of fire. But for 1 versus 1 legs, you know, probably useful to have, but also kind of tough to fit in, especially with the bow if you want an anti-air helicopter. Yeah. Lanes. quite a good number of planes that Denmark adds here. The WDNS, if you want a bomber, that's probably your preferred choice. 2 more bombs compared to the IDS. I'm not sure if I would say better survivability, which you might say because same ECM but better turn radius. But the extra bombs, I believe, mean that the Dragon has to stay in the air a tad longer to drop the bombs. You know, since the IDS has to drop only 4 bombs, it can evac as soon as it drops the 4. But the Dragon has to drop 2 more. Unless, and maybe the way, since they have a different rate of fire, maybe they actually have the same time to drop. But let me just open the armory tool and check that. Meanwhile, garbage, just don't. I don't know what this is supposed to be. Very good rocket pod plane. You can split these rocket pods, by the way, quite easily. Okay, so the armory tool is open. Let's quickly take a look. It's the wrong tornado. Yeah. Just see so that I'm not leaking any shit. So, if you look at the bomb slots, we have, while it doesn't say the same rate of fire, this is irrelevant. They have the same shot reload and just a different salvo length. So the IDS should, I believe, basically drop the bombs within 0.8 seconds and the Dragon within 1.2 seconds. Unless maybe they can drop 2 at the same time, I honestly don't know. But I think in any case, the Dragon will basically just take longer to drop bombs. So I'd say, like, on my armchair general expert thingy, I'd say that probably the survivability is about the same. F100D, very good rocket pod plane, not quite fast, doesn't have a lot of no ECM, but again, a lot of rocket pods. And if you have like several like IFVs or light armored vehicles next to each other, you can definitely split those rocket pods and get 2 or 3 even in a single pass. It takes a bit of practice though, but it can certainly, especially, well, mostly in 1 versus 1s, really do a lot of damage. Block 5, probably, I'd say, the best cluster plane in the game, I'd say, in my opinion. Does have a whole lot of ECM, but 12 cluster bombs is quite a lot. Okay turn radius, and especially with the smoke meta and stuff, and tanks sitting in force a lot of the time, that plane can do a lot of work, especially because ATGM planes, most of the time, if the opponent is using smoke properly, it's tough to finish off retreating tanks when they're damaged or near death. And cluster planes are just perfect for stuff like that. While it's very hard to deal like 8, 9, or even 10 damage to a tank, getting 2 or 3 damage, it's relatively easy. And that's where these cluster planes shine. And even if you don't really have any heavy tanks or tanks to kill, if you know where you're, like on certain maps, there are certain forests where there's always going to be like some sort of IVs, a lot of IVs or medium tanks or something. And when you don't have an MLRS, cluster plane sometimes can do a kind of similar role. While it doesn't really stun as well, although it is actually pretty good at stunning, it also does a lot of damage to vehicles. Very good ASF, 2 on elite. If it weren't for the KWS, probably just the best ASF, at least for 1 versus 1s to take here. MLU, very good. I prefer to use 1 on elite in 1 versus 1 games, because buying 2 of those, it's not quite the same impact as a 27M. So the extra veterancy definitely helps the consistency. But also with the Block 5 and the Peace Run that I also often run both, there's not much need for that much anti-tank powers. And also it helps me to, it also massively makes it significantly better against planes in case I run out or get both of my KWSs killed. But in team games I run it down vetted, because in team games it's easier to buy these expensive units and not have a massive disadvantage because of that. KWS, like I said, probably one of, on average, probably the best Ace F card in the game. In team games, it may be better to, you may prefer something like a Rafale, but it's just a perfect bridge between cheapness for 1v1s, but also card and high-end effectiveness for team games with the fire and forget missiles. It's just it just hits that sweet spot, with veterancy and high-end equipment, which usually, on top of the availability of getting 2 at high vet, because this is the only long-range fire and forget, with the exception of the MiG-29, the Finnish one. This is the only ASF with medium-range fire and forget missiles that you can get 2 on veteran or elite, for that matter. Everything else has some active missiles, and the fact that it has 3, and not just 2 but 3 of those fire and forget missiles, the AIM-120s, is huge. Because if you're flying head on, you can get 3 of those off. You can't get more off, but 3 is just a sweet spot to get the maximum amount of missiles out, and it's just so crucial. If it had only 2 of those missiles, it would still be very good, don't get me wrong, but it would be quite a bit worse, trust me, quite a bit worse. Having 3 instead of 2 is massive, and if it had 4, it would probably come at a lower veterancy. So that, again, that's that sweet spot. Peace Ryan, I don't think I need to tell you, very, very good, very solid all around as well. No good anti-helo plane, which quite a bit better than the F4F, because you often don't want that much speed. You also get better missiles. ECM is not really that important, but it has a good speed, it has a Vulcan, and it has good missiles, comes with good veterancy. I usually like to run that because the bow is pretty slow and not the best anti-air helo, and the Tiger is very expensive, and your AA is just awkward most of the times. If it's in range, it's gonna kill, but it's slow, except for the Ronin 3, and the Ronin 3 also only has a burst of 2, and it's not very cheap. You don't really have any cheap-ish spec. Gepard is kind of cheap, but you don't have anything like, let's say, like above 3 or anything along those lines. It's your only seat plane. Like, I wouldn't run it in a 1v1, but in team games, it's always nice to have a seat plane. It's also just very, very solid, very good seat plane. Not the best, but certainly not the worst. Yeah, and it's just very straightforward. And then the IDS, again, I'd say most of the time, if you want an Iron Bomber, just run the Recon. It also is a fucking F-35. Without the hyphen, but it's an F-35. And as we know, Warchat loves F-35s. So, that is Landjut. For comparison, I showed it earlier briefly. My Landjut 1v1 leg, pretty straightforward. Not a whole lot of AA, but I do have the bow, I do have the Tiger, and I do have the CF-104. And the base cupboard gets quite good availability. And automatic, while this is back, kind of. It is also very, very good against planes, which most specs, while they still might, like, if the plane gets in range, might still be very strong, but they usually have the range disadvantage, and whereas the automatic has quite a bit more range, and of course quite some burst damage. So that's Landjut. No idea what I'll do next time. Maybe something more red for, maybe another blue for, since there's more blue than red. So in any case, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll hopefully see you next time.